Garrett Monroe's memorial smelled like carnations and bullshit. I sat front row in a plain black dress, knees tight, hands folded, pretending I didn't see half the room glance my way before looking back at the slideshow like I was furniture. Nobody mentioned my name. They talked about Garrett like they all knew him best. The man who came from nothing, built an empire, gave second chances. I just nodded along like the good little assistant they thought I was. My name's Lena. I'm 33, live in Bakersfield, California. Garrett hired me right out of high school when I showed up at his office with a resume I printed at the library and zero fear in my gut. He told me I had shark eyes. I told him he needed someone who didn't flinch. We built a $14.6 million logistics business from a rented warehouse and a single freightliner. Nobody in that room knew it, but I wasn't just his employee. I was his shadow partner. Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. To my right, she shifted. Tessa Monroe, Garrett's much younger second wife, draped in black silk, hair slicked into a movie star bun, dabbing her eyes with a tissue that stayed suspiciously dry. She looked like she was auditioning for a grieving widow. 4 years she was married to him. 4. And suddenly, she was the keeper of his legacy. Her diamond-stacked fingers brushed against mine as she leaned in close, mid-service, her voice a tight whisper. He left me everything, you know. The business, the house, all of it. I didn't even blink, just kept looking straight ahead, watching some guy from our Kansas City office choke up over a story about how Garrett lent him $5,000 when his kid needed surgery. Tessa's breath was warm against my ear. He told me you already had a little job, said you were loyal, so he didn't want to insult you with some small inheritance. I didn't turn, didn't smirk, didn't speak, but I could feel her watching me, waiting for me to react. She thought she'd won, thought she'd just dropped a nuke in my lap and I'd go running. Let her think that, because I knew something she didn't. Garrett always played the long game, and he never left loose ends. The service ended with a slideshow and some soft piano music. People stood to clap like it was a damn performance. I stood too, smoothed my dress, and gave Tessa a small, polite nod. She smiled, thinking she'd just buried the only man who ever controlled the company. But she was wrong. She hadn't buried the boss. She'd buried the shield that used to protect her. We walked out of the chapel into the side hall. Where someone had laid out coffee and finger sandwiches like this was a damn corporate mixer. Tessa made a beeline for the corner, heels clacking, and I followed, still playing the quiet assistant. She turned toward me with this self-satisfied little smile, the kind that begged for a slap. I meant what I said, she murmured, taking a slow sip of tea. Garrett told me you already had a little job, that you didn't need much. I tilted my head. She leaned closer like we were girlfriends catching up over brunch. He said you were reliable, simple, someone who wouldn't make a fuss. Sounds about right, I said, keeping my voice flat. She laughed softly, like it was all so amusing. You know, I was thinking maybe you could stay on. Personal assistant, maybe chief of staff, something that feels official. Chief of staff? I raised an eyebrow. She waved her hand. I don't know corporate lingo. Point is, I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. You obviously know the place. I nodded slowly, watching her. She genuinely had no idea. To her, I was just the background girl in a thrift store dress who answered phones and drove that old Nissan with a cracked windshield. She glanced around like she expected someone to interrupt us. Nobody did. The board'll need to be restructured, she said. I'll have to bring in some actual leadership. Probably sell off the Dallas contract. And I've already been talking with someone about offloading the Northern Nevada warehouse. You're selling Reno? I asked, keeping my tone even. Eventually, we don't need it. Garrett never thought long-term about asset liquidation. She smiled like she just said something smart. Once I clear out the dead weight, I can really lean back. Maybe take a sabbatical. Maui's looking good right now. I almost laughed. Almost. She had no clue that Garrett and I fought tooth and nail to open Reno. No clue I negotiated the Dallas contract with a 6-week turnaround and front-end bonus that tripled our Q4 margins. No clue that without that warehouse, her sweet little sabbatical wouldn't last past July. Tessa set down her cup and reached out to touch my wrist. I just want to make sure you're taken care of. Garrett really liked you, you know. You were loyal, like an old golden retriever. I smiled. That's kind. She missed the edge in my voice completely. I'm sure this is a big adjustment for you, she said, sighing dramatically. He was your boss for what, 10, 11 years? 13. Right. That's a long time to be in someone's shadow. But don't worry, I'll make sure you land on your feet. I wanted to say it right then. Wanted to lean in and ask her if she'd ever once checked who signed the expansion checks, or who filed the import licenses, or whose name sat quietly on the secondary LLC documents. But I didn't. Instead, I let her walk me through her little fantasy. She talked about wanting to streamline the brand, about how maybe logistics was too male dominated anyway, and she could pivot into lifestyle or interior design. I nodded along, giving her nothing. Then she said it. I'll probably retire within the year, honestly. Take the buyout, move somewhere quiet. Maui's nice this time of year. I held her gaze. It sure is. She smiled again, satisfied. I'm glad we had this talk. So am I. She had no idea the freight train was already halfway down the tracks, and she was standing dead center on the rails. Tessa left me standing by the sandwich table, humming to herself like she'd just sealed a merger. I stayed back, poured a black coffee, then wandered toward the main room. That's when I saw him, Clyde Rosner, Garrett's lawyer, adjusting the mic at the podium. The room hadn't fully cleared out. Maybe 60 people still milled around, chatting in low voices, some hovering by the back exit. Clyde tapped the mic twice. Folks, if I could have your attention, he said, voice calm and steady, like he was announcing the seating arrangement at a wedding. Before we wrap, Garrett left instructions for a brief announcement to be made here today. The noise dropped off fast. Tessa, halfway across the room, turned, her brows pinching together just slightly. She looked at Clyde, then at me. Clyde cleared his throat and reached into his leather folder. As some of you know, Garrett Monroe was a meticulous planner. In the months leading up to his passing, he made a series of strategic legal decisions to protect his legacy. Chief among them was the creation of a business trust. People started murmuring. You could feel the shift. Everyone listening a little harder now. The Monroe Freight Holdings Trust contains the majority of Garrett's assets, Clyde continued, eyes scanning the room. This includes 85% of Monroe Logistics, associated investment properties, and liquid accounts. All assets in this trust have been reassigned, effective immediately, to the primary beneficiary. He paused, then looked directly at me. Lena Hart. Silence. Not a gasp, not a breath. Just stunned silence. I didn't move. Clyde kept going. 15% of the company has been allocated to Mrs. Tessa Monroe, along with full rights to the beach house in Cambria, and a single liquid account for her personal use. All other assets fall under Miss Hart's stewardship. Tessa's voice cracked through the silence like glass under a tire. What the hell are you talking about? All heads turned. Clyde didn't flinch. Mrs. Monroe, these instructions were reviewed and signed by Garrett Monroe himself, in the presence of 2 witnesses, and filed legally with my office 3 weeks before his passing. She walked toward the podium, stiff-legged and red-faced. No, that can't be right. I'm his wife. He told me I'd get everything. You have been provided for, Clyde said evenly. She turned to me. What did you do? What the hell did you say to him? I looked her in the eye. I didn't say anything he didn't already know. Her mouth opened, then closed. She looked like she was trying to swallow rocks. Clyde opened a second folder. To clarify the reasoning behind Garrett's decision, he documented that Miss Hart had, for several years, been instrumental in the company's growth. She personally funded 2 major expansions, managed high-value contracts, and spearheaded restructuring that doubled revenue between fiscal years 2020 and 2023. People started whispering. I caught the eye of Leo from accounting. His jaw was hanging open. Denise from HR looked like someone had just told her gravity was optional now. Tessa looked like she might faint. She was his assistant. No, Clyde said. She was his partner, in every business sense of the word. The whispers got louder, confused, shocked, angry, even a few jealous tones bleeding through. Some people looked at me like they'd never seen me before, and honestly, they hadn't. Clyde raised a hand. Garrett and Miss Hart had a private arrangement. She brought in outside clients. She took meetings in his place. Her name isn't on the building, but her money and mind are in every wall of it. I didn't say a word. Didn't need to. Tessa stepped back like she'd been hit in the chest. This is insane. He never mentioned any of this to me. That's correct, Clyde said. By design. I watched her grip the edge of a chair. Her whole body looked tight. like a rubber band stretched past its limit. She glanced around, realizing everyone was still watching her. Her voice dropped to a hiss. "You tricked him." "No," I said, my voice low but clear. "I built with him." Clyde turned the page. "There's more." Tessa shook her head fast. "This isn't legal. This can't be real." "It's all very real," Clyde said. "And it's just the beginning." Tessa's face was full panic now, but she still tried to put on the show. She snapped her head toward Clyde, voice shrill and loud enough to make a few people flinch. "This is a scam, a flat-out lie. She's just a staffer. She took notes, for God's sake." Clyde didn't even blink. "Actually," he said, calmly unfolding another document from his case, "Miss Hart has been contributing capital and strategic guidance to Monroe Logistics since March of 2020. He held it up for a second before placing it flat on the table. "That's a transfer record, $500,000, wired directly into the company's expansion fund. Her name's right there." Tessa blinked. No, Garrett would have told me." "He did," I said. "Just not in the way you liked." A couple heads turned toward me. I kept my hands clasped in front of me, voice steady. "We made a deal. I brought in clients through my own channels. Garrett gave me control of operations. Every time the company scaled, it was my systems, my contacts, my money." Tessa turned toward the room, spinning like she needed someone to save her. "She's lying. She must have seduced him or used something against him." I stepped forward one pace. "He trusted me. That's all I ever needed." People were murmuring again, louder now. Denise from HR leaned into the guy next to her. I think his name was Keith, and whispered something. He looked straight at me with this stunned expression, like he was seeing the bones under the skin for the first time. Leo from accounting raised a hand. "Wait, are you saying you're the reason our 401ks blew up last year?" I nodded. "You're welcome." Tessa let out a dry laugh. "Oh, please, that's delusional. You're just rewriting history." Clyde tapped the table. What's delusional is thinking Garrett didn't know exactly what he was doing. Every wire transfer, every decision, every document was reviewed, signed, and sealed. Tessa squared her shoulders. "This is fraud. I want to see everything, every file, every date. There's no way Garrett would hide something this big from me." "You were never looking," I said. That shut her up for a second. Clyde calmly slid another envelope across the table. "If you'd like, we can show you emails, recordings, tax filings, but I suggest you stay quiet for this next part." Tessa's eyes narrowed. "Next part?" Clyde gave a short nod. "You've made several accusations today. That's fine. Emotions are high. But since you brought it up," he pulled out another folder. This one was thick. "Garrett had reason to believe someone close to him might try to contest his estate," Clyde said. "So he did his homework." Tessa took a step back. "What does that mean?" "It means there was an investigation," Clyde said, his voice cool as steel. Tessa went pale. "Of who?" Clyde looked her dead in the eye. "You." You could hear the collective breath suck out of the room. A few people took actual steps back, like her guilt might be contagious. She froze. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," Clyde said, flipping the folder open. "Multiple incidents, financial discrepancies, unauthorized meetings. Garrett didn't suspect Lena. He suspected you." Tessa's mouth opened, then closed again. "You were under review for 6 months," Clyde added. "Private, discreet, at Garrett's request." I didn't move, didn't say a word, just kept watching her as her brain scrambled for a way out. You set me up," she said, pointing at me. I looked straight at her. "You set yourself up." Clyde slid a few pages toward her. "And we're just getting started." Clyde didn't pause, didn't give her a second to breathe. He flipped to the first page in the folder and held it up. "This is a bank record from Chase, joint account, opened 6 months ago under the names Tessa Monroe and Nathan Weller." Tessa's hand went straight to her chest. "I don't know who that is." "Then it's funny that you share 3 active accounts with him," Clyde said. 2 in California, 1 in Nevada, all opened quietly, all used to skim from Monroe Logistics. The room was dead silent. I could feel every pair of eyes moving between her and me, like we were on a courtroom drama set. She finally snapped. "That's not possible. Garrett would have seen." "He did see," I cut in. "I showed him." She whipped toward me. "You spied on me?" Number I noticed the gaps. the irregular invoices, money moving sideways. I brought it to Garrett, he handled the rest. Clyde flipped another sheet forward. That's when he hired a private investigator, started compiling everything. He pulled out a grainy black and white photo. Here you are, meeting with Mr. Weller outside a boutique law office in Palm Springs. March 24th, 3:17 p.m. Garrett was in Denver that day. You told him you were at a spa. Tessa's lips parted like she wanted to scream but couldn't decide on the word. Clyde laid out 2 more photos. Here's you with Weller again, downtown LA, late April. Same guy, same pattern. You used company travel reimbursements to cover it. Photos don't prove anything, she said, voice shaking. I could have been talking to anyone. Clyde gave a thin smile. You could. But these calls? He tapped another folder, pulled from Garrett's landline. 3 lawyers, 2 estate planners, 1 family law specialist. You didn't wait for him to die. You were already planning how to cut him out. She shook her head like a child caught with her hand in the jar. That's not true? We've got timestamps, I said. Call logs, email chains, surveillance footage. Her eyes flicked to me like she suddenly remembered I was still standing there. You planned this. You were in on it from the start. I stepped forward. I was in the office when you started routing checks through the maintenance account. I saw it. Garrett asked me to watch. So, yeah, I was in it. But not the way you think. Clyde placed a flash drive on the table. This contains footage from a camera installed in Garrett's home office. He authorized it after the second flag transfer. All legal. All documented. He pulled a screenshot from the folder and held it up. This is you, he said. On the evening of May 12th, at 9:42 p.m., you're at Garrett's desk with his laptop open. You're reviewing a draft document, a falsified transfer of Monroe Logistics shares, redirecting full ownership to yourself. Tessa staggered back a full step. That's not... You copied his signature, Clyde continued. Badly. You saved the file under ML Tessa Full Control, vi2.x.x. Not exactly subtle. Laughter broke out somewhere near the back. Tessa spun around. Shut up, she snapped. You don't know anything. I moved closer. Garrett did. That's why he left you 15%. He was giving you a way to walk away clean. You're lying? Then sue, I said. Go ahead. Contest it. See what happens. She looked at Clyde. I want everything. If I'm the wife, I deserve it all. Clyde leaned on the table, calm as ever. And if you contest this trust, your 15% is gone. Per Clause 16A, it's all or nothing, Mrs. Monroe. And I promise you won't like nothing. She froze, eyes locked on the table, chest heaving. Her whole image, the pearl earrings, the sleek dress, the widow act, was cracking right there under the weight of the truth. You forged legal documents, Clyde said, voice firm now. You stole from your husband. You lied. You tried to bury the people who built this company. Her hand clenched around the back of a chair. I didn't think he'd find out. He always finds out, I said. And then she sat down, just dropped into the chair like her legs gave out. Tessa's voice cracked as she shot up from the chair. I was his wife. I deserve everything. Clyde didn't even flinch. You were his wife, not his partner, not his investor, and not his trustee. You can't do this, she spat. He loved me. Maybe, Clyde said. But love doesn't override a legal trust. She whipped around to me, wild-eyed. You think you can steal my life, my house, my business? I didn't move, just watched her unravel, arms flailing, mouth losing the battle between rage and disbelief. Clyde placed the final document in front of her. Tessa, read this part carefully. Section 17, Clause B. Your 15% is conditional. If you challenge the trust in any legal capacity, your share is forfeited. Her hand hovered over the page like it might burn her. Clyde went on, voice smooth. If you so much as file a petition, you walk away with nothing. Not the house, not the stock, not a penny. You can't prove intent, she hissed. You already did, he said, in front of 80 witnesses, including your former staff, your peers, and your husband's board of directors. I scanned the room. Every single person was watching her now, the ones she'd ignored for 4 years, the ones she looked down on, the ones she thought she'd owned the minute Garrett's heart gave out. Now they all knew. Tessa looked around, breathing like she'd run a marathon. Then she shoved the papers off the table, scattering them across the floor. and stormed for the exit. But right before she hit the doors, she stopped, turned, stared at me like the question had been waiting in her throat all morning. "How long?" she asked. "How long were you in on this?" I stepped forward. Not smug, not gentle, just honest. "Since year 2. She blinked. "We documented everything." Tessa stood there like a statue. Then her eyes flicked to Clyde, to the crowd, back to me. She didn't say another word, just opened the doors and walked out of the room. And that was the last time anyone in that building called her Mrs. Monroe. By Monday morning, I had Garrett's chair. Not the literal one. He never cared about leather or back support, but the position. The phone line, the calendar. The calls came to me now. I kept the company name, kept the staff. I didn't fire a single person, didn't throw my weight around. I just showed up early, stayed late, and made sure every client, every vendor, every employee knew exactly where we stood. Garrett's legacy wasn't numbers. It was trust. That's what I protected. The first call came from Holbrook Shipping, then 3 more from clients who'd worked with us for years. "We heard what happened," one of them said. "We want to work directly with you now." They all said the same thing. "Garrett trusted you, and we do too." I didn't need to do much. Just kept things moving, quiet and sharp, made decisions like we used to, based on what worked, not what looked good in a press release. About a week later, I was digging through some old files in the back office, looking for a contract from 2 years ago, and found a black fireproof safe tucked behind the cabinet. I knew it had to be his. Garrett always hid things in plain sight. The key was taped under the desk drawer. Inside was one folder, labeled in his handwriting, "Lena, final words." My chest locked up a little reading that. The letter was 1 page, handwritten, clean. "Lena, if you're reading this, I'm gone. You did what I trusted you to do, kept the company alive and the wrong people out. Don't waste time on guilt. Don't get stuck being angry. Just lead the way we always talked about. No shortcuts, no fear. I gave you the company because you're the only one who knew what it cost to build. You saw it all. I never had to explain anything to you, and that's rare. I meant it when I called you my partner. Go finish what we started. I'm proud of you." I read it 3 times before I folded it and slid it into a plastic sleeve. That letter never left my desk again. I didn't frame it, didn't hang it on the wall. I just kept it close, right next to the laptop, under the blotter, where only I could see it. Garrett never needed applause, and neither did I. The staff settled in fast. No one questioned my role. They already knew I'd been running the show long before his heart stopped. Denise asked if I wanted to redecorate the office. I told her no. Garrett liked it plain and tight, and so did I. Besides, the only thing I needed was already there, the weight of what he left behind. Some people thought I'd gloat, that I'd pull a Tessa and start slapping my name on everything. But I didn't. I kept quiet, kept grounded, because Garrett didn't hand me a prize. He handed me a responsibility. 6 months later, my phone rang while I was reviewing a vendor audit. Unknown number, Phoenix area code. I answered anyway. "Hello?" There was a long pause, then her voice came through, soft, raw. "It's me." I didn't say anything, just waited. "It's Tessa," she said. I didn't know if this number still worked." "It does," I said. Another pause. She took a breath. "Nate's gone." I leaned back in the chair. "Gone how?" "Like, vanished. He drained the accounts. All of them. I came home last week and the apartment was cleared out. No note, no call, nothing." I let the silence sit. She didn't like that. "I know what you're thinking," she said quickly. "I deserve it. I get it." I didn't say that. I used to think I was smarter than everybody, that I could play the game and win, but he used me, and I let him. Her voice cracked. She was crying, but trying to hide it behind that same polite tone she used at board meetings. "I didn't just lose money," she said. "I lost everything. My name, my future, even my dog. Nate took the damn dog." I looked out the window at the trucks lining up in the yard. "Garrett tried to give you a way out. He left you enough to start over. You chose the exit with a bigger check." "I know," she whispered. "I was stupid." "You weren't stupid," I said. "You were greedy." She didn't argue, just let it sit there like a stone. "Do you think," she started, then trailed off. "Do you think Garrett would have forgiven me?" I didn't hesitate. He already did. That's why he left you anything. There was a sniff on the other end. "You always understood him better than I did." "Yeah?" I said. "I did." Another pause. Then her voice dropped even lower. I was wondering, I mean, it's probably crazy, but say it. Do you think there's any chance I could maybe work for the company? I didn't react, just let the words hang. I don't expect a big role, she added quickly. Just something, anything. I just want to feel useful again. I looked down at my desk. Garrett's letter was still tucked under the blotter. His words never left me. Don't waste time on guilt. Don't get stuck being angry. Tessa had done damage, yeah. But now she sounded like someone who'd finally hit the bottom hard enough to stop digging. I'll think about it, I said. Okay, she said softly. Thank you, Lena. Really. Thank you. I hung up without saying goodbye. If she was serious, she'd follow up. I sent her a short email the next morning. If you're serious, send a resume. You'll need to complete your FMCSA certifications. No exceptions. 3 months went by. I didn't hear a thing. Then one morning, Denise knocked on my office door with a manila envelope in her hand. No return address, she said. Phoenix postmark. Inside was a typed resume, a certificate of completion for a logistics compliance course, and a handwritten letter, 4 pages long. It was messy, honest. She talked about how she'd grown up chasing comfort, how Garrett gave her a chance at real stability, and she wrecked it trying to control something she never built. She said she wasn't asking for forgiveness, just the chance to contribute. I called the Phoenix branch manager that same day. I'm sending you a new hire, part-time receptionist, tight leash. You'll report to me directly if anything goes sideways. He asked who it was. I told him not to worry about it. Tessa started the next Monday. No big announcement, no favors. She wore plain clothes, came in on time, took calls, filed paperwork. Quiet, professional. Almost too quiet, honestly. The same woman who once tried to bulldoze my entire career was now taking phone messages with a headset and a clipboard. At first, the staff side-eyed her, whispers in the break room. But she didn't flinch. Never brought up Garrett, never talked about the past. She kept her head down and worked. I checked in every few weeks. Her reports were clean, no skipped shifts, no complaints. She even started helping the billing clerk sort out old customer records, on her own time. She's different, the manager told me one day. Good, keep her busy. 6 months in, she got certified in transportation safety compliance without being asked. A year later, I approved her for a promotion to administrative coordinator. She earned it. I never brought up the past, and neither did she. Not once. She knew better. The work spoke louder than apologies ever could. But I never forgot. I remembered the beach house scam. The lies. The way she whispered in my ear at Garrett's memorial, thinking she'd won. That part stayed with me. But I also remembered Garrett's letter. Don't get stuck being angry. So I didn't. I didn't trust her fully. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I gave her a shot and she didn't waste it. Sometimes that's enough. One afternoon, I stood in Garrett's old office. Same walls, same desk, same busted chair he never bothered replacing. The sun came through the blinds just like it used to when we'd argue over vendor rates or expansion timelines. But now it was quiet. Mine. I didn't think about the stocks or the real estate or the money sitting in the company accounts. I thought about what he really left behind. Discipline, patience, vision, the kind of power that didn't need to shout. I ran the company better than ever. Clean, focused, built to last. No press releases, no shiny new logos, just results. People respected that. The staff didn't need a new boss. They just needed someone who wouldn't wreck what Garrett built. And Tessa? She never got rich, but she did rebuild her life. I kept tabs, nothing intrusive. Just enough to know she'd moved into a small 2-bedroom, took public transit, started helping out at a logistics nonprofit for women coming out of prison. She wasn't the same woman who sat next to me at Garrett's memorial pretending to grieve. She figured out what mattered. Took the long way, sure, but some people only learn when they've got nothing left to hide behind. I never reached out, never made it personal. Sometimes the best revenge isn't winning. It's standing tall while the other person finally sees how wrong they were. I didn't need to rub it in. I just stayed the course. That's what Garrett would have done. He knew the truth, and so did I. You don't have to flaunt power to have it. You just have to hold it without ever letting it change who you are.